How's it going, guys? It is I, Crown Fiend, and I welcome you guys to another video. Yeah, a little bit of a blast from the past with this type of intro, because normally I've just been getting on into it. But anyways, here we are with What If Asta Was Spawn, and I hope you guys are going to enjoy this one. This one I actually have done a bit of a true return to form, and I've gotten back into it now a bit more, so I hope you guys are ready for this extra long part 1. And next week, I'm not even gonna lie, Nazi's gonna be delayed for like a week because I'm really enjoying the Spawn story. But anyways, more of that at the end of the video. But let's just go ahead and dive right on into this. Here we go. We gather here today to bury the remains of a young man who had so much spirit and determination, but was simply dealt a bad hand in life. May he find the rest that he so rightfully deserves, and if he is reborn, may it be with better luck in his next life as well. Rest easy, Asta, the priest said as Asta's coffin was lowered into his grave. Yuno stood there as the rain poured down on him, with his fist clenched so tight that his hand began to bleed. The other children were crying, while Sister Lily tried to comfort them. Father Orsi stood there in shock. He hadn't said a single word since he had found Asta's bloodied corpse against the tree. Seeing the cold, dark, dead eyes of Asta broke his soul, and they were all that Orsi could see every time he slept. Meanwhile, off in the distance stood somebody dressed in black and red, as he's cloaked in a red cape, who hid behind a tree, watching the funeral, his eyes burning with green energy fueled by his anger and his thirst for vengeance. I should be dead, but I'm not. I am thankful though, because now I can get my revenge and make damn sure that they remain safe. Asta is dead. From now on, I'm Spawn, Asta told himself as he left the area. The rain continued to fall as Asta began to remember that night with each step he took. It was when he was helping out Sister Lily carrying supplies back to the church. Earlier in the day, though, Asta did beat up some royal who had been bullying Nash and the other children. Right when Sister Lily and Asta were about halfway to the church, a lot of nobles came out of nowhere and ambushed Asta and Sister Lily, who was taken hostage and beaten until Asta charged in, punching the man that grabbed her so hard that he fractured his skull. Asta then told her to run away and to get to the church while he fought off noble after noble, but eventually, him not having any magic showed itself, and Asta would be electrocuted and ran through with weapons and bombarded with spells, which should have killed him, and for a split second it did. However, once he died, he erupted with green energy, which brought him back to life and blessed him with incredible power, but also changed his appearance. The thunder roared and Asta broke out of his trance, realizing that he was now on top of the steeple of the church, and found that it comforted him. Asta then saw someone he recognized, that same noble boy who he had beaten up, as he was steadily mocking Nash and the others. I had my father take care of Asta, and there's nothing you can do about it, because you are commoner trash, forever stuck here in the Forsaken Realm. Unlike myself, I am a noble, and I get to do whatever I want to brats like you and Asta, and in 2 weeks after the Grimoire ceremony, I'm going to the capital where I'll be joining the Magic Knights and forever crush trash like you commoners. The boy bragged to the children, who couldn't do anything but take it, but Asta, he could do something about it. Asta would follow the boy back home, and once Asta knew he was alone, he made his move as the chains began to crackle and move. They wanted vengeance, but they also wanted blood. Asta wanted the same thing, and so he sent his chains at him. They instantly launched themselves, wrapping around the noble boy and pulling him towards Asta, who held him by the throat, and the chains wrapped around his arms and legs. Now I'm only gonna ask you this one time, and you better think very carefully before you answer. Because if you lie to me, or I even think you're hiding something from me, I'll gut you like the pig you are. Not if you understand me. Good. Now, who was it that killed Asta? Asta asked with his eyes burning bright. It was the royal faction from the capital. They sent the purple orcas out to kill the brats. I told my dad what happened. The captain owes my dad favors, and he said it would be repaid. Once Asta was dead, my daddy told me that the commoners must know that they are beneath us, and that they are nothing. I swear that's all I know, the boy said as he pissed himself. I believe you, all right, but here's the deal. You also have another offense, one that I'm not willing to forgive. But I have a heart, so I won't kill you. I'll crush your dreams once and for all, and I hope you weren't too attached to those arms. Asta said as his chains ripped the boy's arm. Asta then used his power to close the wounds and told the boy to remember that just because he's a noble doesn't mean shit. He's the same as any commoner, and that he better leave those kids from the church alone, or he'll kill him next time. The boy ran back home, the best he could, stumbling and falling along the way. Asta then followed him, and once he saw that the boy's father wasn't home, he decided to visit the bars looking for him. To Asta's shock, he found the boy's father all right, and the very same priest who had spoken at his own funeral celebrating Asta's death. Everyone else felt sick to their stomachs, breathing the same air as those two. His funeral was probably pathetic. His foster father, Orsi, was crushed. Hell, he's probably gonna take his own life tonight. Then I'll move in, and well, let's just say that Sister Lily won't be so pure anymore. The priest said, taking a drink. Have your fun with her. But remember, this goes both ways. I've done you a favor. Now you owe me one, and I always collect, the boy's father said. Just then the lights went out and the sounds of chains could be heard, along with the sounds of crushing bones as the two men screamed in pain. Everyone began to shiver in fear as they would see green eyes moving in the dark. With the rattling of chains and the crisp chill in the air, it was so quiet that the people could hear the crunch of every bone being broken, and the muzzled screams of the two men. What are all you standing around for? Get lost before I really get mad, Asta would say as everyone then ran out of the bar, leaving the two men alone with Asta. Do you have any idea who I am? If you did, you'd realize just how much shit you're in, and what you just started, the boy's father would say, and Asta would look at him and say, I know who you are, and I don't care, and soon nobody else will either, except for your son, who I just got done paying a visit to. The man immediately summoned his grimoire, but Asta just grabbed it and burned it to ash. Then Asta would punch straight through the man's skull, killing him, before turning his attention to the priest, saying, Now as for you, I have some questions, and you're gonna give me answers or I'll rip your dick off and shove it up your old wrinkly ass. The priest would then tell Asta everything he wanted to know. Who are you? The priest asked, and Asta just said, I'm Spawn. Tell your friends that if anyone so much as makes trouble for Orsi in the orphanage, or the commoners here, that they'll answer to me. As Asta teleported away, appearing at the orphanage, and surprised since he didn't know that he could do that, but he was also in a lot of pain. However, Asta could see through the storm that Orsi was about to hang himself, and immediately Asta broke through the window and grabbed Orsi just before he could place the rope around his neck. Stop! You don't have to. Do this, please. Father, think of the children. They still need you, Asta said in a soft tone as he gently placed his hand on Orsi's shoulder. And Asta would look at the man who has been his father, who raised him, changed his diapers, helped him when he fell, and held him when he was hurt. And now, seeing him like this, it hurt Asta more than dying ever could hope to. Orsi could tell that it was Asta behind the mask. After all fathers would recognize their sons. Asta, it's really you, right? I'm not dreaming, am I? Please, son, let me see your face. Orsi said, and Asta agreed as he removed his mask, revealing that it was indeed him. Orsi would see the eyes of Asta and would know immediately what he was. Your powers have awakened, Asta. You are now Spawn. Orsi said, looking towards the broken window, gathering up the broken glass, as he told Asta to forget what he said, and that he should come home, and that they'll just say that God returned him to the living world. Asta couldn't do that, however, saying, I can't do that to them. They haven't even grieved properly yet. Besides, after what I've already done, it'll just make them targets if I'm seen around them. I can do more for them from the shadows. I can make sure that no damned noble can hurt them, and I can punish the ones that do, Asta said, looking at the rope in his hands before burning it to ash, asking Orsi to never do that again, and to keep his return a secret from everyone. Very well, Asta. I'll keep it a secret, but promise to not lose yourself completely, Orsi said, looking back, but Asta was already gone. Father Orsi, are you okay? I heard something break, and I thought you were grieving, so I wanted to give you some time, but I'm worried, Sister Lily said as she saw the shattered window, and she began to pick it up until Orsi gave her a hug and told her that everything was going to be alright now. Nights would pass, and Asta took his vengeance out on every noble in the Forsaken Realm. He wanted names of the magic knights who helped slaughter him. This would continue until the day that Yuno got his grimoire. Asta knew that people would attempt to hurt Yuno because of his four-leaf grimoire, so he followed him, and honestly, none of the nobles even dared touch Yuno, and nothing happened until Yuno was almost home, and then chains flew out of nowhere towards him. However, they never reached him, as Asta would grab them and forcefully pulled Revchi to slam into the brick walls face first. Then he would grab Revchi and pull him into the forest as he screamed. Yuno would be terrified of what he just saw, because to him it was nothing more than a red blur. Revchi would then be brought face to face with Asta, and this scared Revchi to the core, as now the stories made sense. You're the one who's been hunting down nobles and magic knights, aren't you? If so, I'm not a magic knight anymore, and I'm certainly no noble either, so why would you be after me? Revchi asked with panic in his voice. Will you shut the fuck up for 1 minute? Truth be told, I don't care about any of that at this moment. My only concern right now is that you attacked Yuno, somebody I declared off limits. I'll give it to you that you probably didn't know that, but I don't care. Not anymore. There's only one thing that saves your miserable damn life right now, and that's if you tell me the name of every purple orca that had a hand in the death of a boy named Asta. Asta said as his flared up his ectoplasm. Revchi began to say that he didn't know, but Asta wasn't buying it, and began to break bones, rip off fingers, and just straight up torture Revchi. And Revchi told Asta everything. Now, you'll let me go, right? That's what you said, isn't it? Revchi pleaded, only for Asta to say that he only remembered saying that he wouldn't kill him, not that he'd let him go. Asta would disappear in the shadows and appear in the capital prison system, and would throw Revchi in and disappear, returning back to Hodge Village. Asta could easily have went after the purple orcas, but he didn't want to reveal himself yet, and most of all, he needed to set up his pieces on the board if he wanted to achieve his goal. With delivering Revchi back there, he would definitely tell everyone exactly what Asta wanted them to know. Yuno would get home and would tell everyone what happened, and said that it felt like Asta was still there, looking after him. Orsi would simply say that Yuno might be right about that. Looking out the window, Orsi would see the red cape flowing in the wind, the green eyes of the ectoplasm, and he swore he could hear the rattle of chains. Closing his eyes and opening them again, Orsi would see that nothing was there, and he would immediately know that Asta would pay him a visit again, which was fine, since he had a favor to ask of Asta. That night, Orsi would be in the main room, sitting there, waiting for Asta. He'd see every shadow that the room cast, and could hear the wind howling at night. Orsi would see the shadow move as Asta stepped out from it, almost as if he was the shadow itself.
"Sorry to keep you waiting. Had to tie up a loose end,"
Asta would say as he stepped out. "Save it, Asta. I don't want to hear who you hurt or killed today. So just sit and remove that vile mask while you talk to me. I want to see my son's face," Orsi said as Asta sat down beside him and retracted his mask back into himself. "I appreciate what you did for Yuno. However, you need to back off for a while. Let the boy fight his own battles. If he needs you, then you can interfere, but he needs to grow. Life or death battles are different. I expect you to step in, but let him fight his own battles. Another thing, they're sending down 2 Magic Knight vice captains to investigate the deaths of all the nobles you slaughtered so callously, so I have a favor to ask you. Leave Hodge for a while and head over to Saucy Village to look after them. The man Sehi is a good friend of mine. He'll give you a place to sleep, and no matter what happens, don't come back here until the vice captains have left," Orsi said as he placed his hand on Asta's shoulder.
"Why do you want me out of the way? What are you planning to do, Orsi?"
Asta asked, and Orsi remained quiet, and this pissed Asta off, with him saying,
"Tell me now, Orsi. You might like being left in the dark, but I don't. Not after what happened. And yes, I slaughtered those damn nobles. They had it coming. After what they did to me, and for what Yuno had to go through. And as for him, he's my brother. Of course I'm gonna look after him. So no, Orsi, I won't promise you anything until you tell me."
Orsi just looked at Asta and told him that he didn't want him to kill the vice captain since they might be nobles that came. Asta calmed down a little bit. He knew that Orsi wasn't lying to him, but he also knew that he wasn't telling him everything. And Asta knew that he wasn't going to win this argument either, not unless he hurt Orsi, which he couldn't bring himself to do. Or at least, that's what he told himself. Asta would get up, telling Orsi that someone was eavesdropping on their conversation as he stepped back into the shadows and disappeared. Yuno would come through the door, asking Orsi if that was Asta that he was talking to, and Orsi told Yuno that it indeed was Asta, and that he was returned to them, but that he's changed, and that's all he could tell Yuno now. "How long have you known he was alive?" Yuno asked, looking at Orsi, who had his hands on his face, as he told Yuno that he's known for half a month now, and that Asta didn't want Yuno to know, since he knew that Yuno would be upset. Yuno was furious, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he simply left Orsi there. Hours would pass, and Orsi continued to sit there in the dark, thinking back on everything. He thought back to when Asta and Yuno were boys, as they ran through the fields playing together. It was so pure and joyous back then. He remembered Yuno's first crush and Asta trying to help him with her. He remembers Asta's first proposal to Sister Lily and the rejection that followed. Orsi would remember so many happy moments, and then his blissful reminiscing would be cut short. As the cruel reality hit Orsi, he couldn't help but hope that one day things would return to normal, and that there would be more happier days. I'll do what must be done for that happiness to happen, Orsi thought to himself. Asta would appear in Saucy Village like Orsi asked him to, and once there, he'd find Sehi. The old man was playing with his grandson. Asta could see that he was an honest and good man. That night, Asta would come to Sehi appearing from the shadows. This nearly gave Sehi a heart attack, but he composed himself as he remembered that Orsi told him that Asta liked to disappear and reappear at random moments.
You know, the door works perfectly fine as well,
he said to Asta, who was looking around, not really saying anything. He would sigh and told Asta that he needed to know everything that he was getting himself into before he would go any further with this, as it was obvious that Orsi had asked for one hell of a favor.
Fine, I'll show you everything,
Asta said as he reached his hand out and ignited it in a green flame as it showed all the events that led to this current moment, with Asta telling Sehi everything. Immediately, it was too much for Sehi as he ran for the door and barely made it outside as he puked out his dinner.
You didn't just slaughter them. You mutilated them. And for what?
Sehi said, looking back at Asta, whose eyes glowed bright green,
saying, you really don't want to say anything else. Because let me ask you this. What would you do if someone killed you, danced on your grave, and then bragged about it to your grandson? Look me in the eyes and tell me you'd do anything different than what I did.
Asta said, and honestly, Sehi couldn't do that. He was just shocked that Asta actually did all of that and was subjected to everything that they did to him. Sehi would welcome Asta, telling him that he would always have a home in Saucy Village. Days would pass, and Asta, for the first time in almost a month, would not have his symbiote on. Instead, he'd be walking around with some blue baggy pants, brown boots, and a black short-sleeved shirt. Asta would be helping out around the village, mainly keeping bandits away and slaughtering magical boar to keep the village safe and well supplied with meat. Meanwhile, Yuno would be at the capital taking the exams, unaware that today was the day the vice captains would arrive at Hodge Village. Yuno excelled at everything, and even the combat part was easy as he won with a single attack. Yuno would choose to enter the Golden Dawn Magic Knights. Meanwhile, Langris and Kaiser would enter Hodge Village and begin their investigation, and all things would lead towards the orphanage. The two would head there, opening the door to see Orsi there praying. Dear God, forgive me, for I have sinned. Forgive me as I failed as a father, and thank you for every moment that I was given in this life. But Lord, please guide him, and do not allow him to inflict his wrath upon those who only do as they must. And Lord, please watch over the children, and let them live a wonderful life. Orsi would say as he stood up and told Langris that he was the one responsible for the killings, and that he was ready to receive punishment. Very well, please step forward and we'll put you under arrest. Thank you for coming quietly, Kaiser would say as he knew Orsi was protecting somebody, likely his son, and Kaiser knew that his captain had sent some members to kill a commoner boy, and it was likely Orsi's son, and Kaiser couldn't stand what they did, but he couldn't stop them by himself either. Kaiser had placed Orsi under arrest, but Langris wasn't convinced fully. Tell me, what's this urban legend of a demonic creature inflicting death and punishment against those who hurt commoners? He asked Orsi, who went pale, but said it was just a story that was spread after a wild animal attacked and mauled a noble boy. Langris seemed to think that it was more than that, as he said, So you mean to tell me that if I kill or hurt a commoner out there, then nothing would happen? Orsi agreed, saying, What could they do against a vice captain of the Magic Knights? Langris agreed as he'd punched Orsi in the face, which really hurt the elderly man, as he raised his hand and landed an attack on Orsi, which wounded him as he was now bleeding out.
Langris, what are you doing?
Kaiser demanded to know, as he was too late to stop Langris from attacking. Looking down, the blood would run over the floor of the church, the light reflected off of it, and shined a bright crimson red, a very beautiful color. Orsi knew that death was near, and felt two emotions more than anything else. First, he felt relieved that he was able to save Asta from meeting these two. But then fear quickly filled his dying heart, a fear not for himself, but for what Asta would do to them when he learned what happened. It didn't take long, only 30 seconds or so, for Orsi to die. But in those 30 seconds, Asta felt the pain and fear of Orsi, and then he felt nothing. Asta erupted in rage as he transformed back into his suit, filled with hate and rage. Say he had never seen such power from anyone, and this terrified him. Asta decided to teleport to Hajj, no matter how bad it hurt him. Asta had to get there fast. Immediately, he was there, seeing one magic knight there, and immediately, Asta grabbed him by the throat. Seeing that he was part of the purple orcas only increased his rage and fueled his hate, but also made him blind to reason.
You killed him. Why? You already killed his son. You killed me,
Asta asked demandingly as he removed his mask.
It wasn't me. I swear to you, on either accounts. I had nothing to do with this, but I can help you achieve justice on those who did,
Kaiser said, hoping some of what he said would get through to Asta. Luckily, something got through to him, and that was Sister Lily, who was covering Nash's eyes and ears. The other children were not present, thankfully. Asta, please let him go, she said as Asta released Kaiser and listened carefully as Kaiser told Asta everything, clearing everything up and filling in details that Revchi had left blank.
So that's how it is. I'll make sure they all pay for everything, not just Longwrists, but your entire squad. But you'll have to earn my trust, Kaiser, if we're going to work together,
Asta said, and Kaiser immediately offered Asta a plan of attack, saying,
I can get you into a Magic Knight squad who regularly recruits members through the back door, and from there we'll be able to enact our plan. I'll get every innocent purple orca out, and then you'll be free to slaughter those that remain.
Asta liked the sound of it, especially since he would have an easier time looking after Yuno. Kaiser would make the deal with Asta and would head back to the capital. Meanwhile, Asta would sit down with Sister Lily and would show her everything, and she just cried on Asta's shoulder while he held her. No words were needed, as Asta now wanted to keep her and the children close, telling her to gather up the children and everything they owned, as Asta teleported everyone to Saucy Village, informing Seihi about everything that went down. Seihi would welcome them all by taking them to the church where they'd be taken in. Asta would be pulled aside by Seihi and told him that he was having a group of people come by that he wanted Asta to meet, and that they'd be here in a few days. Asta would agree, since Seihi did help out Sister Lily, who would write a letter to Yuno telling him everything that happened, but she would lie, telling him that Orsi brought them there, and not mentioning Asta at all. She wanted to spare Yuno the heartache of knowing the truth, at least for a little bit. A few days would pass, and Asta would be walking the perimeter when a fog would come rolling in. This immediately alerted Asta that something was up, when suddenly an ice spear would be shot at him, and Asta would blast it, completely destroying the attack as he rushed in towards the attackers, finding several people in hoods with the symbol of an eye on it.
Who do you work for? Tell me and I'll end your lives painlessly. Resist and I'll show you true hell,
Asta said to them.
We are the Eye of the Midnight Sun, and we seek something inside the village. Let us pass or we'll kill you and that village,
Heath would say as he aimed several ice spikes at Asta.
Not a chance in hell,
Asta would say as he sent his chains at some of the goons, along with his cape moving in and ripping the heads off of the grunts, while the chains impaled the others, ripping their guts out. Asta then rushed in and set Heath on fire and watched him burn to ash. Luckily for Asta, though, one had gotten lost and arrived a little bit later than the others, and Asta immediately captured him and tortured him for information. Meanwhile, Yami, Magna, Finral, and Noel would arrive at Saucy Village, where Sehi would greet them, saying, "Captain Yami, Magna, thank you for coming. We've been expecting you. Please, follow me to the church." The Black Bulls would follow, but Magna had never seen Sehi so worried or scared before. "Why do we have to go to the church? Are we meeting a priest or are they a noble?" Noel asked. "He's a commoner, but I wouldn't get too attached to those titles, because if you're a noble, I suggest you wait outside. Because if there's one thing this guy hates to its core, it's nobles, and I don't even think your captain would be able to save you. He's just that strong," Orsi said, warning Noel about what she was about to face. "He is just some commoner. He won't scare me. I'm from the extinguished Silva family. Nobody scares me," Noel said, as she thought nobody scared her more than her family does. The group would arrive at the church. Walking in, they would be greeted by Sister Lily, and once they were all sat down, they would watch as all the candles went out. The air would have a chill run down everyone's spine. It felt like the shadows were coming to life and began creeping towards them, when suddenly the sounds of chains could be heard as they looked and saw a massive red cape sprawn out with chains hanging down. In the middle of it all was Asta, wearing his black suit with slight red and white highlights. The skull's green eyes shined bright. The little light that was visible reflected off the spikes on Asta's suit, and his gaze was enough to send panic and fear down the spines of all present. As Asta landed on the floor, he'd look at everybody before dropping the severely beaten and bloodied member of the Eye of the Midnight Sun's group on the floor. He was still alive, but just barely, and Asta informed everyone of what happened and what the group was after. Noelle was terrified, now realizing why Sehi told her to wait outside, and wished she had listened, as Asta terrified her more than anyone else she'd ever met or ever will meet. Magna was scared, but chose to overcome it with pain by biting down on his hand as the blood dripped from his hand and ran down his arm onto the floor. Meanwhile, Yami had his hand firmly gripped around the hilt of his blade, ready to fight if the need should arise. "Spawn, please stop intimidating them. After all, they're our guests, and we're in a house of God, so violence is strictly prohibited. Remember our deal," Sister Lily said, and Asta would stop and would wait for their response. "So, this is the guy you want me to take into my squad. Say, you're asking a lot, even from you, old man," Yami said while keeping his eyes fixed on Asta. "Spawn, please show them your story and reveal yourself to them. Maybe then you'll understand," Sehi said, hoping this would explain everything. Asta would oblige them and would once again show them everything, showing them the horror, pain, and injustices done against him, the torment that his family went through, then the hell he inflicted against those who hurt the innocent and slaughtered people for no reason. Yami could see the good in Asta, but also saw that he needed guidance, that he was just unleashing his wrath, and that he wasn't being careful enough. He was still young after all, he was only 15 years old, but Magna was speechless. He couldn't believe what had happened to Asta. Noelle was shaken to her core. Seeing how ruthless the nobles could be was a real eye-opener for her. As she couldn't handle it anymore, she broke down crying. How could they be so cruel? You were just defending your family. It wasn't even that big of a deal, Noelle said, and Asta moved over to her and wiped her tears from her eyes. He was gentle, kneeling down to Noelle, who had hit the floor, retracting his mask, showing Noelle his face, as Asta looked at her with soft yet stern eyes, asking if she was a noble. Noelle would nod her head, saying that she was, but she'd never be okay with what they did to him. Asta could tell that she was being genuine, and so he pulled her in close, letting her cry into his shoulder while he whispered,
"Thank you for being better than the other nobles. I can see that they have hurt you as well. For that you have my deepest sympathies, and a promise that I shall right the wrongs done to you."
Magna would be thinking that Asta was a real man, up there with Captain Yami himself. And Yami, seeing that Asta was still able to show compassion and kindness to others, would agree to take Asta in, but on one condition. He needed to fight Yami, so that way Yami could see just how strong Asta was, and know if he could beat him should the need arise. Asta would agree, and they would all go out into an empty space, as Asta would teleport them all there. Meanwhile, Finral would be going around flirting with all the girls that he could, after he split off from the group, not wanting to get caught up in anything. Suddenly, the ground would shake, and he would see giant bursts of purple and green energy erupting in the distance. What the hell is going on over there? I know that Captain Yami's there, but who the hell is he fighting? Finral said with an abundant sense of dread.
"Oh, that's probably Spawn who's fighting your captain. Gotta say, I've never seen him use that much power against somebody. So your captain is pretty strong, but Spawn? He's on a whole nother level,"
an old man would say to Finral, before then walking off and returning to his shop. Asta and Yami would be going at it, but something wasn't right. Yami was the only one taking any damage and being worn down. Meanwhile, Asta was just fine. He wasn't even out of breath.
"Be reasonable and forfeit. I don't want to hurt you, but I will," Asta said, only for Yami to say, "Shove that sentiment right up your ass, kid. I'm close to surpassing my limits. If I surrender now, what kind of example am I setting for my magic knights?"
Asta would smile under his mask, and then saying, fine, that he'll actually take this seriously. But Asta would remove his chains and cape as they floated in the air behind him.
"Wait, those things can move on their own?"
Magna asked, surprised. Asta didn't respond. Instead, he went forward, throwing a punch that broke Yami's sword and destroyed his spell, along with sending Yami flying backwards through several trees, and he made sure to hold back enough so that he wouldn't punch straight through Yami's stomach, though. Asta would look right at Yami, as he was bleeding from his mouth and was barely breathing.
"You know, it wouldn't have mattered if I'd surpassed my limits 1,000,000 times. I'd still never be strong enough to beat you. So do me a favor. Look out for my squad. They're gonna need you, since I won't be around much longer,"
Yami said, but couldn't finish as Asta told him to look after them himself, as he healed Yami completely, restoring him back to full health, and even better than what he was before.
"Now, how about we stop all this ego stroking and skip to the part where you make me part of your squad?"
Asta said, and Yami agreed, now knowing that Asta was an insane monster, but also knew that he would have to train everybody extremely hard to even be able to have a hope against Asta, should the need arise. The two would walk back towards the group as Asta's cape and chains flew over to him and reattached themselves to him. Once there with everyone, Finral would arrive, asking if everyone was okay. Seeing the destroyed battleground, he could only imagine everything that happened here. "Where the hell have you been?" Noel and Magma demanded to know, and Finral didn't have any good excuses.
Oh, Finral, you're here. Good. Open a portal and take us back to the village now, would you? I'm completely exhausted and in need of a serious drink,
Yami would say as he and Asta finally made it back over there to everybody. I'm seriously low on magic power right now. I don't even have enough to let everybody go through a portal. And how did y'all even manage to get all the way out here? Can't you just go back the way you came? Finral asked as he was tired of this an entire trip and finally put his foot down.
I'm not teleporting anymore. Today, it hurt like hell. Every time I do it,
Asta said while grabbing Finral's hand, telling him to open the portal as he channeled his necroplasm through him, allowing him to open the portal and transport everyone. Once there, Yami would say,
"Alright, this is Spawn, our newest member to the Black Bulls. Once he gathers up his things, we'll be leaving."
Asta would tell them that there's nothing for him to grab. He doesn't own anything. So instead, Asta would say his goodbyes to everyone and would leave to go back to the Black Bulls base. Asta would walk in and see everyone acting like clowns and the mess on the floor everywhere. Asta would immediately get pissed off, and everyone could feel it. Yami also wasn't a big fan of this either, and he knew now more than ever that he needed to pull everyone together and start making his squad into respectable magic knights. Everyone seeing Yami would rush over and greet him very formally. Asta didn't like this either. He knew the magic knights were their military force of the country, and if he was going to be a soldier, then he was going to be damn sure that everyone else was going to pull their own weight as well.
"Everyone shut up and pay attention. It's time for us to actually have a real meeting,"
Yami would say, as he demanded that everyone sit at the table, which they all did. And immediately Yami introduced Asta to the group as Spawn, and said that he was extremely powerful and dangerous, which excited Luck, but Yami quickly shut him down, knowing that Luck would only get himself killed. Yami would tell them that starting now, they were all going to be going through hellish training until they had become stronger and that the Black Bulls were competitive with the other squads. This would surprise everyone, especially Ghosh, who only joined for a paycheck and to be able to see his sister, not to actually do any work. Asta would be looking around and would notice something as he'd get up and place his hand on Gray and would burn away the magic, revealing her true form to everyone, and immediately she became flustered and tried to cover her face, asking Asta why he did that.
"You need to get real comfortable in your own skin. If you don't like how you look, change it. But your days of cowering away behind a disguise is done. So from now on, whether you like it or not, we're gonna build you up. And only then, and after then, do I have some ideas on how we can make your magic work."
Asta said as he revealed his face to them, and Gray actually blushed a bit, thinking that Asta was very handsome. This would make Noelle feel pretty jealous and angry, but she didn't really know why yet. Vanessa, however, noticed everything. Gordon was actually really on board, seeing this as his chance to make friends with everyone. Charmy wasn't really too excited for this, as her only joy in life was cooking and eating. Magna, on the other hand, was really excited for this, because after seeing Asta versus Yami, he knew there were levels of power out there that were so far beyond anything that he had ever even imagined, and Luck was just happy to fight people. The first order of business was for them to all clean up, and Asta decided that he was actually going to turn in early to get some rest for the first time in a month. First, though, Asta would write a letter to Kaiser, telling him that the plan was moving forward. That night, Asta would get some sleep, which was extremely unpleasant, as he was plagued with memories of his murder, and something long before that. He remembered seeing a woman that looked a lot like him, and a man dressed similarly to him but wore armor, like a knight, hearing screams and then nothingness, until he heard the sound of children crying, hearing Nash and Yuno trying to comfort them, with Sister Lily praying over him, while Orsi whispered to him saying, "Wake up, it's time." Asta would wake up in a cold sweat, looking and seeing Gray holding him. I woke up to get you some water, and I heard you screaming into your sleep, so I wanted to see if you were okay. Sorry if I was wrong, she said, looking away from him, only to be surprised when Asta said thank you, smiling at her with the moonlight lighting his face and shining in his green eyes. Gray would actually look at Asta, seeing his muscles since he was finally out of that suit. She would see the scars on his chest, the way his hair moved, the softness of his eyes, and the confidence in how he carried himself. Gray felt her heart beginning to race with her blushing. She immediately got up and left Asta's room, telling him goodnight, and returning to her room immediately. She felt something that she couldn't describe, but now she just wanted to be around Asta more. The next few days would be hell for the Black Bulls, as Asta and Yami ran them into the ground, but there were 5 of them that took it in stride and really showed tenacity, that being Gordon, Noel, Gray, Magna, and Luck. But Noel and Gray seemed to be having a heated rivalry, as they each wanted to outdo the other. However, it was only when Asta was around, which usually he wasn't, as he began to truly test himself and his abilities to see what he could and couldn't do. He already knew that his necroclasm could damage and burn through anything. Grimoires, magic, didn't matter if it had a physical form or not. If it was there, he could burn it away. He also knew that he had complete control over fire, being able to create it and manipulate it at will. He knew that he could teleport, but every time he did, it hurt him so much that he didn't like doing it. So instead, he moved through the shadows as a form of teleportation, which didn't hurt at all, and he found it to be rather pleasant. He also discovered through training that he had the ability to control animals and beasts to do his bidding. He learned that he can jump super high but could also fly, learning more about his chains and capes as they could be molded into whatever shape he wanted. Asta also found that he could change his density at will, and that he now weighed around 500 pounds of pure muscle mass, along with having an amazing healing factor and being able to heal others like he did for Yami. Asta was sure he could do more, but he'd learn that all in time. Days would pass and Yami would get a mission passed down to him, since his squad needed to actually be given a mission since they hadn't done anything in a pretty long time. It would be a joint mission with the Golden Dawn. Yami would tell Asta and Noel that Luck would be going with them on this mission and that they'd need to meet up with the Golden Dawn at the dungeon, and would send them on their way. Once they arrived, Asta would tell them to follow his lead, which Noel understood. But Luck wouldn't give a damn as he wasn't listening and would rush off towards a strong mana source that he felt.
I'm gonna crush that little light bulb if he survives this,
Asta would say in an annoyed tone, as he and Noel moved on in the dungeon, and Asta protected Noel the entire time, destroying all the traps that got set off along the way. Shouldn't we go find Luck, Spawn? Noel asked, concerned.
Not yet. He's not hurt or in any danger yet, so we'll wait and let him learn a valuable lesson,
Asta said with an almost evil grin on his face. At that moment, a sudden gust of wind appeared, and Asta just swatted it away with his hand.
So, they did send you here, huh, Yuno?
Asta asked, looking up right at Yuno. He was surprised at how easily his spell was just disregarded. With Yuno were 2 people, a white-haired man with glasses who introduced himself as Klaus. He had an arrogant aura around him, and Asta could already feel his anger growing. The other one was a woman who was very well proportioned, having orange hair, but also had an arrogant aura about her, and Asta hated them immediately. He figured out they were nobles just from how they felt, specifically the type Asta hated the most, the type that thought they were above everyone else. Typical, the Black Bulls couldn't even send 3 members, nothing but a bunch of trash and thugs. Klaus said as Mimosa chimed in, "Sorry, Noelle, I'm sure he doesn't mean you, but, well, your family did kind of throw you away, huh?" Asta's anger would flash, and Noelle knew what was coming. "Asta, don't. Let's just move on. Please, don't kill them. It doesn't matter what they said about me," Noelle said, begging Asta not to kill them. Then and there.
"Fine. I won't kill them, but I'll make sure they learn a lesson that might just save their lives,"
Asta said as his chains would wrap around both Klaus and Mimosa's necks, tightening just enough to where they couldn't get away. As he channeled some necroplasm through it, it would make sure it wasn't enough to kill them, but would remind them of what could happen. But before he could, Noelle begged him to stop, and looking at her, seeing the tears in her eyes, Asta couldn't stand seeing her ocean blue eyes filled with sadness. "She's my cousin. Please, spare her," Noelle said, and Asta would release her, and instead pulled Klaus in and punched him so hard in the stomach that Klaus felt like he was going to die. His breathing was erratic all over the place as he took deep breaths in between vomiting. Mimosa would immediately go over to him and begin to heal him, while Yuno walked over and asked Asta what happened to him.
"I died. That's what happened. But everything I do is to protect you and those who have been wronged by people who abuse their power and commit evil against the innocent. Nobody is beyond my reach,"
Asta said, and this sent a chill down Klaus and Mimosa's spines. Yuno would ask Asta if he still knew how to be kind to people, and Noelle immediately cut in, saying that he was the kindest and most compassionate man that she's ever met, and that yes, his actions might be extreme, but he always does the right thing, and only hurts people that absolutely deserve it and already had it coming. Yuno would smile, saying, "Well, Asta, if she can say that about you, then I guess you haven't changed at all. Only became more of who you really were all along." And Noelle would be confused when Yuno called Spawn Asta.
"That's my real name, but I don't let anyone use it. Though, it's alright if you wish to,"
Asta said as he began to walk off towards the shadows. Noelle ran to catch up to him. Asta would then pull her in close to him. Where she was up against his chest, she became incredibly flustered, asking what he thought he was doing, but Asta told her that he was going to teleport them through the shadows, and that she had to be close or she'd get hurt. Hearing this, Noelle relented and moved with Asta through the shadows, and appeared right as Luck was about to be seriously hurt from fighting against Diamond Kingdom soldiers, and Asta immediately slaughtered them all, while Noelle helped Luck up.
"What did I tell you before we entered, Luck?"
Asta asked. Luck couldn't look him in the eyes, and Asta noticed this, so he grabbed Luck by the face, forcing him to look Asta in the eyes.
"Look at me when I talk to you, Luck. I'm not your mama, she's not here, and clearly you never had a father figure before in your life, but I'm not your daddy either, and right now, you put everyone at risk, and I should break my foot off in your ass, but I won't, because I know that you only did what you were trained to do, right? It's clear your mother made you this way, so when we get back to base, Big Brother Spawn is gonna make sure we fix that shit,"
Asta said, putting Luck down, who was now fully healed thanks to Asta. Luck would be on the verge of crying, but Noelle would hug him, saying that he also had big sister Noelle to help him through everything. Even though Luck was probably older than them, it made him happy, and really helped him more than he would know. Asta would then guide them to the door of the treasure, and right before he could open it, a giant diamond sword came right at them, and Asta just caught it and threw it right back at Mars, who dodges it and praises Asta, saying that he did well, but tells him that he'll die soon.
"Already tried that once. Not a fan. So how about you die instead?"
Asta responded back. Klaus, Yuno, and Mimosa all formed a unit and attacked Mars, with Yuno unleashing several attacks, which didn't do much against him. And Asta was just waiting. He was going to teach Mimosa and Klaus his lesson one way or another, and this way he didn't have to go behind Noel's back to do it. This was until Yuno got sent flying back, and that was the final straw, as Asta went berserk, sending his chains to bind Mars before then using them to slam him against the ground over and over again as blood and teeth poured out of his mouth, and Asta followed it up by punching straight through Mars's chest, ripping his heart out. Klaus and Mimosa were shocked at how easily Asta killed Mars, since the two of them didn't do anything but get in Yuno's way. How did you manage to do that so easily? Klaus asked as he crumbled to the ground. He's light work to me, and you're nothing. Just remember, a commoner just showed you how outclassed your pompered ass really is, Asta said to Klaus, which broke his spirits. Asta would then kick the doors in and went to look around, and Noel would see a shining magic wand and desperately wanted it. Asta, seeing this, would pick it up and give it to her, saying, "If you want it, then take it. After all, it can only help you, right?" And Noel would say that it's stealing from the kingdom, and Asta would dispute that, saying that the kingdom doesn't even know what's in here, so she has a right to take it as a finder's fee. Plus, who's really gonna miss a magic wand, and if they don't put it in the report, they'll never know it's missing. Noel would take it, and she felt her mana actually begin to stabilize and flow normally when she cast a spell. This made her extremely happy, and Asta actually really enjoyed seeing her happy. Yuno would walk in and look around as something pulled his grimoire over to it, and the page would actually fly into it, filling his grimoire with a giant flash of light. As when it all faded, it revealed a tiny wind pixie next to Yuno. Asta didn't really care, as something was pulling him towards this giant sword, with a skull on it that matched the skull on him. Asta reached his hand out and grabbed the handle of it, and the power flowed through him, as all the souls inside the sword went to Asta's suit, increasing his power, which was a good thing, as a loud noise could be heard behind them, as Mars' body came back to life, twisting with red energy as it flowed into his body. As it shifted up, his eyes flashing red, as he said,
"I know you're here, Hell Spawn. Come out and I swear that I won't kill your friends here. Come, face Bahamut."
Asta would walk out, carrying the sword with him, looking at what used to be Mars.
"You are the Hell Spawn I was expecting. You are unclaimed by heaven or hell. This is most concerning, but you are not King Spawn."
Mars would say.
"Who the hell is King Spawn? I'm the only Spawn around here."
Asta asked.
"Be gone from me, Pawn. I would kill you with a single attack, but I must track down the Savior, so that he may take the throne."
Mars said as he slapped Asta away, sending him through the wall and actually drawing blood from him. However, Asta was now pissed off, and he wanted payback.
"I'm nobody's pawn,"
he roared as he charged forward and cut Mars's arm off. The two then entered a battle that moved so fast that nobody else could even keep up. As Asta and Mars began to clash back and forth, the ground shaking from the battle, Asta would use his chains and explode them with necroplasm, severely hurting Mars, and for the first time, Asta was out of breath. This fight was intense, and Mars grabbed Asta and slammed his head against the ground over and over again, before then ripping out his heart.
"You fought well. I shall remember you, pretender,"
Mars said.
"Funny, because I won't even remember your name after I take your head,"
Asta said as he cut Mars's head clean off. Also, his soul would fall into the blade. And finally, Asta had killed Mars and put his heart back into his chest to heal himself by absorbing the necroplasm from Mars's body. After he was fully healed, Asta then went ballistic in mutilating the deceased corpse of Mars, making sure nothing was left for him to come back from, not noticing his soul entered the blade.
Pretender my ass, bitch,
Asta said, walking away from it. Noelle was happy Asta was alive, and without thinking ran over and hugged him, saying he worried her almost to death. Asta, for the first time in a while, actually removed his mask, and immediately Mimosa fell for him as she finally saw what Asta was all about and got jealous of Noelle. But Mimosa was also seeing Yuno and how bravely he fought to save her a few missions before, and even on this one, she realized she was developing feelings for both of them.
Asta, are you okay?
Yuno asked as he came running over.
I'm fine, Yuno. Don't worry, I'm not gonna die and leave you all alone again, brother,
Asta said as the two actually hugged for the first time in a very long time.
Spawn, or is it Asta? Anyway, I wanted to apologize for my actions, and for what I said. I realize now that I was wrong. I'm truly sorry,
Klaus said, and Asta actually forgave him, but said that it's Spawn when it comes to his name. They would all return back to their bases, and when they came back, immediately Gray ran up to Asta, asking how it went, and Asta smiled weakly and softly, and said that it was eventful, but he was tired now, and wanted to take a bath and then get some sleep. Asta did just that, as he laid in his bed for hours, staring into the darkness. But what he learned really got to him. There was another Spawn out there, one that was apparently supposed to be king. Asta thought about who or what the other Spawn was, and just what really led to his death, and how he gained his powers. Asta also remembered Orsi's words to him in his dream. He was tortured by these thoughts as he heard a knock on his door.
Come in,
Asta said, as Noelle entered wearing a long white nightdress, with her hair down in the moonlight, causing her eyes to sparkle and shine brightly. Entering the room, she closed the door silently behind her, asking if she could talk with Asta. She was having a hard time sleeping, and Asta obliged her. Noelle would tell Asta about her past, telling him how she was blamed for her mother's death, how her siblings would bully her and occasionally beat her, while her oldest sibling, Noelle, would do nothing, and was always the hardest on her, and never said a word to her whatsoever. She was miserable, and when it was her brother that decided to kick her out of the family and send her to Yami and just abandon her all because she was the youngest and couldn't control her mana that well.
They're cowards that don't deserve you at all, Noelle. You're extremely beautiful, hardworking, and sure, sometimes you talk down to people, but I can tell that you never mean it. Instead, you use it to hide your own insecurities and motivate yourself. You don't have to do that anymore, though. You never have to hide your true feelings anymore. And we'll get past your insecurities together. I promise,
Asta said, as he was now standing in front of Noelle, where she could see the deep green in his eyes as the energy swirled inside it. Noelle would see every scar on Asta's body from how he was killed, and Noelle knew deep down that she was falling for Asta, but didn't know if he felt the same way. And so, she thanked Asta for his help and left his room. And on her way back to her room, Asta sat back down on his bed and wished that she had stayed, as he didn't want to be alone now. Asta would push all the thoughts down as he wished he could talk to Yuno. Maybe he could understand it all. And suddenly, he felt a connection to Yuno and could hear his thoughts.
Yuno, can you hear me? Or am I just finally going crazy?
Asta asked, and to his surprise, Yuno answered saying, I can hear you inside my head. How's that possible, Asta? And Asta would tell Yuno that he didn't really know, but that they needed to talk, as Asta broke the news of Orsi's death to Yuno, and told him that he hears Orsi in his dreams, saying something about Psalms 137, and something about how Asta needs to sit upon the throne, whatever that meant. What throne, though? And Asta, Psalms 137, verse 9, it's the only one that would apply here. It reads, "Happy is the one who kills the infants of thy enemies. Please tell me you set up protective measures for our siblings and sister Lily," Yuno asked in a state of panic. But Asta was already on the move. He'd appear in their rooms while they were sleeping in the darkness, placing markers on their foreheads, and then finally one on Sister Lily.
They're safe now, Yuno. Nobody will be able to even touch a single hair on their heads now. I'm coming to do the same to you,
Asta told Yuno as he appeared in front of him and placed a marker on him that would protect him when Asta wasn't able to. Asta, you've told me everything except for who killed Orsi, and I deserve to know. He was my father too, Yuno said, getting up in Asta's face, and for a split second, Yuno saw the pain in Asta's eyes, and then it was quickly replaced by rage.
The vice captain of the Golden Dawn, Longris, is the one who killed Orsi, and I swear that candy-ass bitch is gonna suffer for an eternity after what he did. The vice captain of the Purple Orcas, Kaiser, and I have a plan to get revenge on him and everyone else who had a hand in my death. So if you want revenge for Orsi, feel free to say so and join us,
Asta said as he extended his hand to Yuno, who took it, saying he wouldn't forgive anyone who hurt or killed his family. And that's where I'm going to be leaving it off. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I hope you actually guys would see this as a huge step in the right direction and massive return to form. Also, if you made it this far in the video, comment down below. Who is your favorite Spawn character or Spawn variant? Just comment that down below so I know who actually watched the entire video and who didn't. Anyways, if you guys like this type of content, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Just remember, God is awesome, you guys are too, and I'll see you next time. Peace.